Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to make a maple dip donut. Some of the tools and techniques we will be using to create this donut will be the 3D extrusion tool, multiple layer transparencies, opacity masks, and we will be using some named colors from the Wiki Color Palette, created and donated by Bill Taylor, also known as Soapwilly on the forums. So, are you ready? Grab yourself a snack, because this one's probably going to make you hungry. And let's get started. Okay, before we start, I'm going to be adding some extra colors to our color line from the Wiki color list. So I'm going to open up my color gallery, and as you can see, I have the Wiki color list palette installed and expanded. I'm simply going to scroll down, and we're going to add this bronze color to the color line simply by double clicking it. And there it is. And you can see I've already got this fawn color. These are the two colors we're going to be using to create our maple dip donut. Let's begin. To start, we're going to create a circle. I'm going to hold down the control key, and with the ellipse tool, I'm just simply going to click and drag to create a perfect circle. I'm going to go to the selector tool, and I am going to round this off to an even 300 pixels. Type it in and hit enter. It is important to make sure that the lock aspect ratio button is in the down position when you do this in order to keep your circle a perfect circle. Now I'm going to add a 24 pixel outline to the circle, and I'm going to make the circle transparent in the middle by clicking the color hatch down on the color line. Now we need to extrude this, and before we can do that, we need to convert this into a shape so that this line becomes a shape. If I extrude it now as is, the extrude tool will treat this center portion, even though it's transparent, it will treat it as if it is still there. And that's not what we want. So to convert this to a shape, I'm simply going to use the Arrange menu and Convert Line to Shape. Now we have our shape that we need, and we can fill it with this nice fawn color. Now let's grab the Extrude tool, and I'm going to click this button here and just apply a default extrusion to our shape. Let's grab it down here and just flip it up. About like that looks good. Now it doesn't look much like a donut yet. First thing we're going to do is increase the bevel size right up to the full 250. And you can see that's making a really flat looking donut. So let's pull it up and increase the size up to around 50 pixels in height. Now, however, we've got another problem. You'll notice that we've got this flat area on the edge of the extrusion. We're going to remove that by increasing the bevel size even further. To do that, we're simply going to highlight and type in this box. We can type any amount in here, and we can increase our bevel above the 250 pixel limit that the slider has. So I'm going to increase this to 600 pixels and hit enter. Now that looks more like a donut. All right, now before we start giving this the texture that it needs, I'm going to make an extra clone by going Control K on my keyboard. And I'll go to the Page and Layer Gallery now so you can see what I'm doing in there. We've got our two extrusions. This top clone, we aren't ready to use it just yet, so I'm going to hide it. Now I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to remove the gloss on it. So we'll go back to our 3D tool for a minute and just simply click here. Now we've got a nice flat matte look to our donut, but it's a little too flat and it doesn't have that nice donut texture. So let's begin creating that. First, I'm going to use Control K again, and I'm going to clone this again. You can see here I've got another clone. I'm going to apply a transparency to this. We're going to give it an elliptical transparency, and I'm going to change up here the transparency type from mix to stained glass. And the tiling I'm going to change from simple to repeating. Now we need to pull this out a little bit. And pull this up. Now I'm going to pull this up. And it's beginning to look a little better. I think I'm just going to pull this up a little bit higher. Pull this down now. And I'm going to pull this out a bit. Now this gives us a bit more color variation, but we still don't have the texture we want. So we're going to make another clone. Control K. This time we're going to change the transparency to a fractal plasma transparency. And I'm going to pull this. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and pull this in to about like that. Now I'm going to click. You can click anywhere on this line, and this will activate our fractal resolution and fractal scale for the transparency. So I'm going to start by bringing the scale up to 100%, and I'm going to change this resolution to about 200. Simply type it in there and hit enter. Okay, now we've got a bit more texture, but it has too much of a repeat to it, and it still doesn't look quite right. So one of the things I'm going to start with is I'm going to click here in the center, and I'm going to add some transparency here. This is our start transparency. I'm going to bump that up to make this a lot softer. And there we are. It's a lot softer, and the repeating part of it is showing up less, but it still doesn't quite have the look that we want. We need one more layer. So let's go Control K and clone it again. And this time I'm going to adjust the handles like so, putting it on an angle. And I'm actually going to make this just a hair bigger so there's a difference in size as well as the angle. Already you can see a difference. This one I'm going to give it a little bit more of a start transparency too, just to blend it a little bit more. Now that's looking pretty good. Now it's time to add the icing. We're going to go back now to that extrusion I hid and unhide it. And I'm going to pull it back up now to the top of the stack. Now this is going to be our icing layer. We're going to give it this the bronze color. So we've got this nice look of maple frosting. However, we don't want the frosting to be coating the whole donut. We want some of the donut to show at the bottom, and we want it to look as if the frosting has been kind of drizzled over or dipped and it's kind of dripping down the sides. So we're going to use opacity masks to create this effect. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to control it. I'm going to use Control K again and make a clone of this. And with this clone selected, I am going to convert this to an editable shape. Now I've got a button up here on my info bar that can do this in one click. You can also do this from the Arrange menu by going Arrange, Convert to Editable Shapes, or there is a keyboard shortcut, Shift Control F. Now you'll notice over here in the Page and Layer Gallery that our editable shape is no longer an extrusion. It's become a clipped photo. So we're going to make sure it's selected, and we're going to go over here and we're going to change the fill from bitmap to a flat fill. Now this gives us a basic black shape that's completely covering our extrusion, and it's exactly matched to our extrusion. But like I said before, we don't want this whole shape. We just want part of it. So in order to be able to see better what I'm doing, I'm going to temporarily apply a transparency to this, just so I can see. Now I'm going to zoom in. Out there looks fine. And we're going to grab the freehand and brush tool. I'm just going to hit escape on my keyboard to make sure nothing is selected. And I'm going to start drawing a wavy line just outside of the donut, like this. And we'll make it nice and wavy and kind of drippy. We just want to give our frosting a nice wavy, drippy look. Now once we have this done, with our line still selected, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the shape underneath. I'm going to hit Control 4 on my keyboard to now slice it into two shapes. Now the top shape, which is currently selected right now, we don't need. So I'm going to delete that. Now our bottom shape no longer needs to be transparent. In fact, we need it opaque anyways. So let's remove the transparency on that. Now I'm going to add an extra shape up in here, just to kind of give the appearance that the frosting has dripped down inside the middle of the donut as well. So let's grab our freehand tool. Then we'll just draw a little shape. Just kind of like that. Now I'm going to get the shape editor tool and just adjust this so that it follows this edge. And I think I'm going to remove these two little nodes out of here. Just delete points. All right, that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll pull this side in a bit. That looks pretty good. Now with this shape still selected, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the bottom. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control X to cut them to the clipboard. Select the icing layer, right click, paste, paste opacity mask. Now I'm just going to nudge this down, holding down Alt button and using my arrow keys to nudge this down to line it up to where it needs to be. Now this gives us a nice glossy icing layer, but it's really too thin. It doesn't look like a thick layer of frosting that's been drizzled or dripped over the donut. So we're going to fix that with a few more layers. But first I'm going to apply a shadow to this layer. So let's get the shadow tool and I'm going to give it a wall shadow. Let's open this up and let's make sure that our opacity mask group is selected as a whole, not just the opacity mask. Now let's give it the wall shadow. There we go. Now I'm just going to adjust the shadow because we don't want the icing to appear as if it's floating over the top. And I'm going to increase the blur just a little bit. Not too much though. Okay, now that's our first layer, but it still looks really thin. So let's Control K to clone this once more. And now I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just nudge this over to the right. Just a bit. And I'm going to adjust the blur on the shadow on this layer and the transparency just a bit. Just make this a bit thicker. Now, it's looking thicker, but it's still looking rather sharp edges, and we need to soften that up a bit. The way we're going to do that is we're going to open the opacity mask group on this one, and I am going to open the opacity mask, and I'm going to start with the bottom shape, and I'm going to give it a bit of feathering. And as you can see, this is definitely giving it a much softer edge, which is what we want. Maybe we'll increase this just a bit more. I don't want to go overboard on that. That's looking pretty good. Now the next to do is this shape in here. I'm doing these shapes separately because I find it works better to do them separately rather than feathering them both at once. So again, we'll add a bit of feathering. We don't want to add too much on this. And now with this shape still selected, I'm going to nudge it down just a bit more. Oh, I still have my feathering active. There. Now the final layer of the icing. I'm going to clone this one more time, Control K. This one I'm going to move over the other way to the left. And up. Now we are going to adjust the feathering on the opacity masks on this last layer. So make sure we've got the correct layer selected and open the opacity masks. I'll start with the bottom shape. I'm going to increase feathering on that one. Select the top shape. And I'm going to increase the feathering on this one. Now I'm going to select this whole opacity mask group, and I'm going to adjust the shadow on this one just a bit. I'm going to give it a little bit more color to it, just to, and I'm going to adjust the blur. So we've got this nice soft looking shadow. Now this is looking pretty yummy. I think too I'm going to go back down to the original one here, and I'm going to drop the blur down on this shadow and adjust this shadow just a bit more. All right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit on this. Now we have our basic donut, but of course all these shadows that we applied to the icing now have left this kind of halo on here. So to get rid of that, I'm going to make sure that our entire drawing is selected. I'm going to go Control A. Everything should now be selected, and I'm going to apply a clip view. And now it's all neat and tidily clipped. One thing you can do now, if you want to add this into an extra drawing and you don't want the edges to be quite so crisp, is you can add a little bit of feathering to this whole clip view. You don't want to go overboard on the feathering. And my computer is slowing up with the screencasting software. So I'll just leave it at that. And as one final touch, what I did in my original drawing was to add a bit of a custom shadow. I simply just used an ellipse like this. And I'll send it to the back, bring it so that it's down behind our donut, like so. Maybe we'll just pull it that way and skew it a bit. And I will use the transparency tool to give the shadow some transparency. Feather it to give it some softness. And that's about it. And I will give my computer a chance to redraw this, I hope. My screencasting software seems to be slowing things down. I do have a finished drawing over here that we can look at, which shows you the nice soft icing dripping down and basically what your finished donut should look like. Thanks for watching this video. As a special bonus, I have decided to upload the original Xara file for my maple dip donut to the clip art gallery at topgraphics.com. You will need to be registered and logged in to Talk Graphics in order to access the clip art gallery and this file. But registering there is free, and the benefits are great. Again, thanks for watching.